Hi there, I'm Ryan. This is Roll for Initiative. In this episode, I'm going to be talking to you about the core races that you'll find in the Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition Player's Handbook. So this is a chance for you to get a little bit more in-depth as well as help you out with your character creation. And if you're following along with Dawn in her intro to D&D character creation videos, then this might be a nice one that you can be referencing and then pop back over there if you want to be rolling up your character as you watch the videos. So let's go ahead and dive into the different core races that you can choose from just using the Player's Handbook. The first one we're looking at is the Dragonborn. Dragonborn is a really cool race within D&D that I like a lot. Basically, they are either have been created by the dragon gods in ancient times, or maybe even through magic by dragon themselves, but however they came about, regardless of where they're from, they're now a proud race of strong, draconic humanoids. And play-wise, they're often met with mistrust and sometimes fear from the NPCs or even the other players that you encounter. Playing a Dragonborn probably means that you're going to be an uncommon race, so make sure that you're checking with your DM. You should really be checking with your DM for everything so that they can tell you, well, what races are common or uncommon, or are there any rules or ways that they want you to be doing your character gen. But we're just going to take a look at this race right now. Their uncommon nature and the way that they look, again, that means that you might have some interesting experiences with NPCs and maybe even some of the other players in your party. So let's look at the numbers. Dragonborn live to be about 80 years old. They're mature, much younger than humans are. They're a medium-sized creature, and they have a speed of 30, meaning they can move 30 feet in their round. If you pick Dragonborn, you're going to get a +2 to your strength and a +1 to your charisma. So as you pick the race, that's going to influence the numbers and the stats that you have after you roll for your stats. And you can see some of the ways of doing that in some of Dawn's other character creation videos. But whatever you end up rolling, you're going to add a 2 to the strength and a 1 to a charisma if you pick the Dragonborn. Your draconic background is a big deal with your Dragonborn character. Basically, it's what type of dragon is their ancestry or their bloodline. It's going to affect the way that they look and their scale color and all of that, but also mechanically, it's going to affect the breath attack that they have and their resistances. So looking at what those are, the black and copper dragon, that's acid. The blue and bronze dragon, that's lightning. Red, gold, and brass dragons are fire. Green is poison, and white and silver dragons are cold, meaning that they have cold resistance and also a cold breath attack. And black and copper dragonborn have acid resistance and acid breath attack. So it's a little bit of flavor, but there's also a major mechanical component. Now, as a general rule, keep in mind that for the most part, the metallic dragons are considered benevolent or good, whereas your chromatic dragons, black, white, red, the chromatic dragons tend to be seen as more of the evil style of dragons. So that also might play into the way you're playing your character, but also the way your character is treated by others. One thing throughout this video is you're going to notice I don't really talk a whole lot about alignment. The Player's Handbook does, and so sure, take a look at that. It gives you suggestions of what people in these races tend to be. Personally, I sort of default to what a number of other GMs out there are saying, which is this idea that, well, look, maybe some races, because of reasons and history and circumstance, might tend to be more chaotic and evil or lawful and good, but those are really just your moral compass, and it should be something unique and specific to your character. So I don't talk a lot about that, simply because I don't know. I think that it's kind of unfair and limiting to say, well, all drow are going to be evil and all of your red dragonborn should be evil. That's not really the way that I see it. But if that's the way that you choose to let it guide you, then that's great. Fantastic. You play your game the way you want to play your game, play your character the way that makes sense. Lastly, with your Dragonborn character, the languages that you start out with are Common and Draconic. All of your characters are going to start with Common, so I'll probably skip saying that one, the Common language everyone speaks. But they also speak Draconic. A lot of magic is based around the Draconic language. It's an ancient magical language, and so it might be helpful finding old stuff and magical stuff, knowing how to read and write Draconic. The Dragonborn's a great way to go. Another option for race that you have are dwarves. Dwarves are stout, short, hardy people. They have very long lives and proud lineages. They tend to live in the mountains and have clan and kin type family structures. Playing a dwarf means that you're going to be one of the more common races. Dwarves tend to be courageous and proud of their traditions. Oftentimes they are described as stubborn. Most dwarves do tend to get along, in general terms. Dwarves get along with the other races of the world, and dwarves are very often initially seen and immediately thought of as very respected crafters and miners and merchants. Dwarves are considered young, or kids until they're about 50 years old, and they can live to be around 350 years old. And that's, so, looking at that, it gives you a very different perspective on the events of the world when you live that long. So maybe keep that in mind for some of your role play options that are out there. As a dwarf, you're between 4 to 5 feet tall, not really larger than 5 feet. Your size is medium. Base weight starts around 150 pounds, and your speed is 25. So that does mean, the dwarves are a little slower. Mechanically, that means you're going to probably move 1 5-foot square less than some of the other races who have a base of 30. Dwarves do have Darkvision. A lot of the races do. Now, Darkvision is very nice. Basically, it means you can see in the dark pretty well. If you are in dim light conditions, then with Darkvision, you can see perfectly normally for 60 feet. And in total darkness, you can see as if it was dim light. There's something to keep in mind, because I think it gets forgotten a lot, that with dim light, that means that you do have disadvantage on any perception checks based on vision. So while you can see, you are rolling at disadvantage if you are in total darkness. Now, that disadvantage doesn't affect your attack rolls. It's just the vision-based perception checks. Dwarves are pretty hardy. They have advantage on saves versus poison, and they have resistance to poison damage. Resistance meaning that they're going to take half damage if they take any at all. As well as the fact that they're allowed to make an intelligence check about stonework, and so they're able to get information by seeing the craftsmanship of any kind of stonework. You speak Common like everybody, as well as speaking Dwarvish. All dwarves are going to get a +2 to their constitution, and there are 2 sub-races talked about in the player's handbook, and those are picking the hill dwarf or a mountain dwarf. So no matter which one you do, you're going to have a +2 to your constitution. If you pick the hill dwarf, you also get a +1 to your wisdom, and you get 1 extra bonus hit point at first level and every level after that. If you choose the mountain dwarf, you get a +2 to your strength, as well as that +2 to constitution, and you are immediately proficient with light and medium armor. So that's the dwarf. Elves are graceful and enigmatic and intrinsically magical creatures. They're the longest lived race, and they're often seen as sort of aloof and odd and standoffish. So those are some things to consider for the role play aspect. You might really have a lot of chances playing an elf to bring a new perspective and a new point of view on events. A lot of the times they can come across, like I said, as aloof or as haughty. They take their time in making the decisions, making friends, holding grudges. And for the most part, these elves tend to seek out the life of an adventurer because of a sense of boredom or just wanderlust, and they want to get out and see the world. Elves are considered immature or young or adolescent until they're around 100 years old, and elves can live to be as old as 750 years old, according to the player's handbook. Like I said, they live for quite a while. They stand around 6 feet tall, and they have very sort of thin, lithe, sleek builds. Their speed is 30, and their size is medium. Elves also have Darkvision. You are considered proficient in perception. In addition to all of that, elves have advantage against checks against charm magic, and elves cannot be put to sleep through magical means. When it comes to sleep, elves also don't actually have to do it. They don't sleep the way the other races do. In the book, it talks about the fact that elves go into a bit of a trance. Now, they're only in this trance for 4 hours, and they can still get the benefits of an 8-hour long rest, as well as the fact that they are somewhat still conscious while in this trance, which means that an elf that is taking watch at night, who takes their 4-hour trance, they can receive the benefits of their rest, as well as still be able to make perception checks if they are on watch, which is a pretty cool thing to keep in mind. And your languages are Common and Elvish. There are 2 types of elves, they're sub-races to choose from. There are Wood Elves and High Elves. No matter which one you pick, you're going to get a +2 to your dexterity. If you choose to be a High Elf, you also get a +1 to your intelligence, and you are proficient with long swords, short bows, and long bows. You can also choose 1 cantrip from the wizard's spell list. It goes off of your intelligence, and it sort of signifies how in tune and in touch with their magical nature the High Elves are. Also, High Elves can learn 1 extra language. Wood Elves, on the other hand, get a +1 to their wisdom, as well as that +2 to dexterity. They have the same weapons proficiencies, longbows, short bows, long swords, short swords. Their speed is increased to 35, so they're a little bit quicker. They can move farther. And anytime they are lightly obscured, so in the snow, if it's snowing, or if there's a heavy rain, or if there's a fog, Wood Elves can make a check to try to hide. So there are your elves. Gnomes! I like gnomes. I think they're a fun race. Gnomes are an energetic and creative race. Their personalities are much larger than their very small physical size. They tend to be seen as tinkerers and inventors. Really, for the most part, gnomes are really well liked by a lot of the other races. You see a lot of them in big cities. Gnomes are considered young until they're 40, and they can live to be around 500 years old. Your size is considered small, so that's the first time we're talking about a size change there. Your size is small. Gnomes tend to be 3 to 4 feet tall, and they weigh around 40 pounds, so they're little folks. Gnomes do have Darkvision as well. They have advantage on all willpower, intelligence, and charisma saves against magic, and gnomes can read and write Common and Gnomish. If you're playing a gnome, you have 2 sub-races to choose from. They are forest gnomes or rock gnomes. Rock gnomes get a +1 to their constitution, and they can add twice their proficiency check anytime they're doing something with alchemy or magic or technology. They also have a set of Tinkerer's tools, and they can use that. They can spend an hour, and they can spend some gold in order to make a tiny clockwork device, which can either be a music box that plays music, it can be a small mechanical toy, or essentially a fire starter, a lighter that can be used. Forest gnomes get a +1 to their dexterity, and they can cast the minor illusion cantrip. They can also communicate simple words and phrases and thoughts and all that kind of stuff. Not in-depth conversations, but they can speak with any creature that is a size small or smaller. So it's really cool talking to chipmunks and squirrels and ravens and all kinds of stuff like that. Moving right along, we now have some of the half races. We have the half-elf. Half-elves are a little more common throughout the most of the settings, but the half-elves mechanically might have a nice suite of bonuses from their racial bonuses, but a lot of the times there's some social stigmas that are there. A lot of the half-elves tends to be ostracized. Half-elves aren't elvish enough for elves, and they're not human enough for humans, and so they tend to stick together and be seen often as outsiders, kind of no matter where they are. So maybe there's some storytelling and roleplay hooks in there for you. Half-elves tend to age just like humans do until they get into their 20s. They live longer, though, not as long as elves, but they do live to around 180 years old. They are medium in size, and their weight and build and all of that kind of stuff similar to humans. And their speed as well is 30. Picking a half-elf gives you a +2 to your charisma and a +1 to 2 other scores of your choice. So there's some flexibility in there, and that's a reflection of the versatility that the humans have. Half-elves get Darkvision. They have the same advantage and resistances to charm magic. They can't be put to sleep magically, and they get a proficiency in 2 skills of your choice. Half-elves can speak Common, can speak Elvish, and then 1 other language of your choice. Half-orcs are the next race that I want to talk about. They can often be found living with other orcs or in tribes or the fringes of cities. They're usually feared and mistrusted and shunned. A lot of societies sort of look at half-orcs, immediately judging them as brutes and criminals without even getting to know them. There's a lot of interesting storytelling hooks that are in there. Half-orcs tend to be very passionate and fiery and proud people. There's plenty of half-orc mercenaries and soldiers and generals and things like that that you will find. Half-orcs are strong and hardy, so you're going to get a +2 to your strength and a +1 to your constitution. Half-orcs are mature by the age of 14, and they live to be about 75 years old. They're medium in size, and they tend to be bulkier, pretty strong, and can be well over 6 foot tall. Like a lot of other races, your speed is 30 with the half-orc. You do have Darkvision. You are proficient in intimidation, and you're able to roll an extra damage die on a critical hit. Also, something really cool about the half-orcs and their sturdiness and their perseverance is when you are reduced to 0 hit points, as long as you're not killed outright, you immediately gain 1 hit point back. It's that sort of what do we say to death? Not today. The half-orc racial feature that's really, really cool. And you can do that 1 hit point thing once per long rest. You can do it once and then you have to take an 8-hour long rest before you can do it again. Languages are, of course, Common, as well as being able to speak Orcish. Orcish doesn't have a written language of its own. It uses the Dwarven script if that comes up in your game. Let's take a look at halflings. Halflings are the smallest of the races. They've found their homes across cities and across countrysides as performers, crafters, adventurers, merchants. They're really a fun group of folks. As a halfling, you get a +2 to your dexterity. All halflings get that regardless of subrace. They live to be about 250 years old. They're considered mature at 20. Like gnomes, halflings, your size is small and don't really get taller than 3 feet. Average weight around 40 pounds. Like I said, halflings are the smallest, are pretty darn small. Your speed as a halfling is 25, so keep that in mind as well. 1 less square of movement than a lot of the other races. Halflings are very lucky. They have this innate luck ability, and you can re-roll 1s. When you roll a 1 for an attack, an ability check, or a saving throw, you can re-roll a 1 time. Now you have to take the new roll. If you roll 2 1s in a row, you're stuck with it, but you do get to do that. Halflings have advantage on saving throws against being frightened, and halflings can move easily. There's no penalty for their movement through a space of a medium creature or larger. As a sub-race, if you choose the Lightfoot sub-race for the halflings, you get an additional +1 to your charisma, and you can hide behind medium creatures. If you choose the sub-race of Stout, you get a +1 to your constitution, and you have poison resistance and advantage against saves for poison. Halflings can read and write Common as well as halfling. Halfling. And of course there are humans. Humans tend to be the most numerous race in most of the settings and everything across Dungeons and Dragons. They're the most prominent race in a lot of the games. And at first glance, maybe they don't seem to have as many racial bonuses as some of the other ones do, but really looking at the humans, what it is their flexibility and their variety and their ability to adapt really well. And the racial bonuses that you do get for being a human really do reflect that. The first thing, and maybe the best thing about choosing a human, is all of your abilities get a +1. So when you roll for your stats, everything gets added, everything is increased by 1 by rolling up a human. Humans are turned into adults in their late teens. They live to be around 80 years old, 5 to 6.5 foot tall. You know, human size, human weight. Your speed is 30 and your size is considered medium. Humans can speak and read Common as well as one other language of your choice. Now there is a variant rule for humans that's pretty popular. Instead of doing all the stuff that I just said, instead what you can choose to do as a human is get a +1 in 2 different stats, proficiency in a skill of your choice, as well as taking 1 feat at character creation. Now this is pretty cool, and if that sounds good to you, make sure to talk to your DM first, especially because of choosing those feats. Don't just show up and say, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this thing in the middle of a fight, when your DM says, well, why? No, you can't do that. And say, oh yeah, well at character creation I took a feat and it lets me do that. If you want to do that, that's okay, but don't surprise people with it. Talk to your DM during character creation. Say, hey, I'd like to take this, I'd like to take the variant option for humans. There's a lot of flexibility there, and it's a really cool choice. Just make sure you're being communicative. The last race that we'll talk about are the Tieflings. Now, Tieflings, even though there are half-orcs and they're dragonborns, a lot of the time, and for the most part, Tieflings are seen as the least trusted race, and the race that's, you know, kept at arm's length, and really people are a little leery around or follow around or don't trust so well. And it's because of their heritage. The Tieflings have a Hellish heritage. They come from devils and demons, and it's very apparent. Just at immediate first look, your Tieflings are any skin tone that humans or dwarves or whatever or elves might have, as well as the option of these shades of blues and reds. Sometimes their legs are hooved or even clawed feet or normal feet. They have long tails that aren't quite prehensile. You can't use them to hold things, but get moved around and have some agency there, as well as their horns, either growing up out of the top of their head or off from their forehead and curling back. There's a lot of customizable options for how your Tieflings look, but with their strange skin color, their hooves, their horns, claws, as well as their eyes that are one solid color, solid orange, red, white even. They immediately look like they have devils and demons and hellish ancestry, and there's a lot of mistrust by a lot of other races. These are probably going to be one of the least common races. They're really cool, they're really fun to play, but again, double check with your DM if that's the way you want to go. Rolling up a Tiefling, you're going to get a +1 to your intelligence and a +2 to your charisma. They have the same height and weight and age as humans do. They do live a little bit longer than humans, maybe around 100, 110 years old or something like that. As a Tiefling, your size is medium, your speed is 30. You do have Darkvision as well as resistance to fire. Tieflings start off at level 1 with the Thaumaturgy cantrip, so they're going to be able to cause gusts of winds or slam some doors or strange creepy sounds. At level 3 they get a Hellish Rebuke, which is going to do some damage, and at level 5 they're able to cast Darkness as a cantrip. So there's some neat magical devilish progression that happens there. And as a tiefling, you can read and write Common as well as the Infernal language. So there you have it, the core races from the Player's Handbook. There are other races out there, and if you are doing the +1 book rule with your DM, maybe you're going to look at some of the races that are in Unearthed Arcana or Volo's Guide or something like that. But this should be enough to get you started and maybe pick something new and have an idea of where you want to run. So now that you've chosen your race, we'll look at choosing your class and keep moving right along with the intro to D&D and your character creation. So thanks for watching the video. Huge thank you to our Patreon supporters. I want to say especially thanks to Joan and Bryce, Arby, Lainey, and Sean. If you'd like to hop over to our Patreon, patreon.com/rollforinitiative, and take a look, sign up, give us a little bit of support, help us continue to make videos even better. That would be really cool of you. We would certainly appreciate it. If this is your first time, welcome and thanks. You're probably building a character and it's exciting, and welcome to the world of Dungeons & Dragons, or welcome back to it. I can't wait to hear what you think. What are the races that you chose? What did you decide you wanted to play? Did you play something new? Did you make a decision to do a race you've never played before after hearing me talk about it? Let me know what you chose. Let me know in the section down below, and we'll start some conversation down there. That'd be really cool. Join us every Tuesday and Thursday. That's when we put new videos out. And do me a favor, make sure that you hit share and like and subscribe and hit the little bell icon to get notifications anytime we're doing cool stuff. We have bonus videos sometimes and things like that, so you don't want to miss anything there. Also, let me know if there's some other races you'd like me to talk about, or if you'd like me to pull some from the other sources other than the Player's Handbook. Could easily do another one of these videos looking at some other races. But I'm Ryan, this is Roll for Initiative. Thanks for your time, and I will see you on the next episode. If you roll 2 ones in a row,